He's here. Devi, some of you who are sitting there, please come here. So, the last row, you take from the last row. So other people, if they want to come, they can come. In front, right? Radha, tell them. Huh? Is it all right, or are they sitting in the wrong place? Okay. Two hamsas together. Swami can come here.
Shivananda, Shivananda, Shivananda Panima. Shivananda, Shivananda, Shivananda Rakshama.
Venkatesha, Venkatesha, Venkatesha Pahimam. Venkatesha, Venkatesha, Venkatesha Rakshamam.
Venkatesha, Venkatesha, Venkatesha Panima. Venkatesha, Venkatesha, Venkatesha Rakshama.
Venkatesha, Venkatesha, Venkatesha Pahimam. Venkatesha, Venkatesha, Venkatesha Rakshamam.
Venkatesha, Venkatesha, Venkatesha Panima. Venkatesha, Venkatesha, Venkatesha Rakshama.
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama.
By the grace of God, and my Gurudev Swami Shivananda, and your grace, as well as the grace of Lakshmi, and Dr. Douglas Smith and others who run this center, we are able to be together again for a little while. And this time we thought we would have a look into an inspiring, though not extremely popular text called the Yoga Vasistha. It's sublime, but it is not as well known as, for instance, the Bhagavad Gita or the Upanishads. And it's only God's grace that can enable us to conclude successfully what is enthusiastically begun. Almost 50 years ago, when most of you who are present here were not even born, or not even thought of, leave alone born, there was a very popular book if you who are of my age group might remember it. I don't know if it is still popular. These things come in and go out of fashion quite fast. The book was called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And right on the top of the cover was printed, over 1 million copies sold. And I saw it continuously for about 5 or 6 years, and still it was just 1 million copies sold. Well, no, man. It's a mystery in mathematics. Everybody wants to win friends, and everybody would love to influence others. It's a very beautiful aspiration. Now we don't call it influence anymore, it is manipulation. In those days it was called very, Victorian language. It was called influence people. And the sum and substance of the teaching was in my own words, not in the author's words, I've forgotten, or half a century ago. Make everybody feel that you are deeply interested in their welfare. Paraphrased in simpler language, pretend to be interested in other people so that you can grab them. Pretend to be interested in others, praise others with tongue in the cheek, I don't know, without any tongue at all. And get what you want to get, disappear. Why disappear? Otherwise they would do the same thing to you. We love to deceive others and not be deceived. That is when there is fun. But when you realize that it is a two-way game, it's no longer fun. And therefore, I guess that book has been dropped. Because after some time, when somebody comes, looks at you and says, you're so charming. Aha, how to influence people, huh? I've also read the book. But one statement with which the teaching opened was very interesting. The author said that a close survey of human dialogue shows that the word that each one uses most often is the word I. I. I want this, I do this, I like you, I don't like you. It's always I. Almost 50 years later, not quite, 40 years later, I met a young Italian yogi teaching in Germany. He was also of a similar temperament, and he had a roaring success for some time. His fundamental philosophy was, you are the center of the whole creation. Assert this. That's it. The whole world exists for you. And the whole world revolves around you. Everybody is there to serve you. Make them do so. Fantastic philosophy. Oh, everybody was thrilled. Here is the key to success. Huh? He was an Italian, so he wasn't using the word very correctly. Here is the key to be handed to your successor. When you get into this rat race, your successor will get the key. You will be no more very soon. Why? You are the center of the world, I am also the center of the world. You think all of us exist to serve you, I think all of you exist to serve me. What happens? That's what he found out very soon. 6 months, I believe. In 6 months, he had to close his shop and run away. Because everybody became the center. And he became the circumference. Whenever I think of him, I remember a nice little story which I learned again when you were not born, 50 years ago. A had borrowed $1,000 from B, and he was in no mood to return the money. So B went to a court, filed a suit. And A went to a clever lawyer. He said, it's true, I borrowed the money, but that fellow is wealthy, can afford to be without $1,000. He's not going to become poor. But I am not so rich, and $1,000 mean a lot to me. Can you fix it? And the lawyer said, yes, of course. And before I give you my advice, let us decide on the fees, 50%. He said, okay. Only $500, okay. And the lawyer told him something. Please do this and you will come out successful. And you take 50%, I take 50%. The man was called up before the magistrate. And the magistrate asked him, did you borrow $1,000 from this man? Yeah. Can you speak? Yeah. Are you mad? What do you do? And the lawyer for this man got up and said, Your Honor, he's mad, completely mad. Nothing could be done. So the magistrate dismissed the case. Both of them walked out of the courtroom, and when they were outside, the lawyer congratulated this gentleman on acting so precisely in accordance with the lawyer's instructions. And he said, congratulations, your case has been dismissed. Now where are my fees? Where? Same thing to you. I actually borrowed money from him, and a few beggars dismissed the case. I didn't even borrow any money from me. What more do you want? Go. So when you teach others that you are the center of creation, you are creating trouble for everybody concerned. So, instead of looking from the assumed existence of the I or the me, is it possible to look the other way around? Is the question. Is it possible first to determine what this I, the ego or the me or the soul or the self or whatever it is? See if it is possible to understand it, and then maybe all these other things shall be added unto us. That in brief is what we are about to undertake, the journey we are about to undertake. What does this mean? I want, first of all, I want everything for me. I am not even satisfied with what I have, however much I have. I want a little more. Not only a little more than what I have, but a little more than what you have. Otherwise, my prosperity, my affluence, my influence become meaningless. Think of everyone in Perth being a millionaire, just a millionaire. What's the difference? You are no longer special, you are no longer important. Everyone wants to be a little more than the neighbor. And this unfortunately plagues every aspect of life that the human being touches, whether it is called religious, secular, political, economic, domestic, social. Every aspect is polluted by this dreadful venom. I want to be. It seems to be totally contrary to all the training that you and I have received from childhood. We have always been taught to look out. And that seems to be natural. As a matter of fact, there is a lovely and inspiring mantra in one of the Upanishads called the Katha Upanishad, where the author says that the mind has been fashioned in that way by the Creator. With all respect to the Upanishadic system, one wonders whether this is so or it has been assumed to be so. You know the axiom of propaganda. When a lie is repeatedly asserted, it becomes truth. Repeatedly affirmed, or whatever it is, with an outgoing tendency, or whether we have merely accepted it. I'll give you one simple argument which might challenge even that Upanishadic statement. If the mind is always of an outgoing tendency, how can you sleep? If you observe yourself, when you wish to fall asleep, you will see that you are eager to return to the source. You are eager to withdraw the rays of the mind within yourself. You want to get lost. This is our daily experience. As a matter of fact, in a manner of speaking, you are working for the rest of the day in order that you may sleep nicely at night. Huh? Right? All that you do during the day, you do with the sole intention that at night I may sleep nicely, soundly. Because without food in the stomach you can't sleep. Without a nice bed and so on, room you can't sleep. And it is to acquire all these things that you are struggling throughout the day. And sleep is a condition in which the mind is withdrawn, drawn into itself. So it may or may not be true that the mind is endowed by nature with an outgoing tendency. One has to investigate all that. What is this me? This me arises in life, from life. In other words, again, life was there even when me was suspended, as in sleep, as in a coma. Life was there even when there was no me, even when there was no ego. Before you were born, even for some time after you were born, there was no ego. You are a wriggling piece of flesh called a baby, infant. The me was not there, but life was there. The me arises after the life has come into being. The me arises in life, from life. One does not have to go back to in the beginning, either of the world or of one's own life, if there is a thing called one's own life. But it is possible for us to examine this phenomenon, to investigate this phenomenon every morning. You were alive, whether you knew it or not, which means even consciousness was suspended, and you wake up and the me emerges from life itself. The me emerges from consciousness, from awareness, or the me is the awareness at that time. So, being the effect, it is unable to understand its own cause. Being a product, it does not know who the producer is. It does not know the nature of the producer. It does not know the nature of the cause. And we do not know the nature of life, and yet we think we are alive. It's a mystery, fantastic mystery. You go on mechanically living. In a way, mechanical living is better. Though spiritually it may not be. At least you don't tread on other people's corns, jump on other people's shoulders, crush them. Like the tribes, jungle tribes, they live They didn't ask why am I living? They didn't ask what is life. They went about performing what are called natural functions. They lived, they ate, and they mated, and one day they died. They had no birth certificate, they had no marriage certificate, and therefore they didn't divorce. And they died and nobody knew who they were. Mechanical life. But we are unable to live even like that. So you look round, the me looks round, trying to understand life from which it arose, from which this me arose, from which the me arises every morning. This is the beauty. It is not, we are not speculating, we are not talking legends and myths and philosophies. It is something which is happening to us every morning. Out of this life, the me arises. Not knowing what life means, not knowing what life is, it struggles. It struggles to understand. Thinks, I'm hungry, I want to eat. Oh, I love this, I love that. Is there no understanding at all? Is it not possible to understand this phenomenon? Have we to go on struggling and struggling and struggling to live? Is it possible to understand the meaning of life without the me creating divisions in it? Because the me, when it becomes aware of life, it cannot comprehend life in its totality. Why? Because it's a product, it's an effect. It cannot know its own cause. And so it divides everything. And there is fragmentary awareness. Fragmentary awareness in the sense, this is life and this is death. Otherwise, why do you want to eat? Because there is a fear that if I don't eat, I will die. I don't want to die. Are you? Is there any sense in that statement? I don't want to die? I'm afraid of going into oblivion. My God, every evening you want to go into oblivion. Every night. You're not scared? Incidentally, why are you not scared to go to sleep? Because somebody told you that you will wake up tomorrow morning. Then you go to sleep happily. That is, you perform a natural function without unnatural fear. When someone has introduced a speculative theory called, you will wake up tomorrow morning, you may not. And parallel to this is the other speculation, at the other end. Oh, I'm scared to die. Then she comes along and says, Swami, you won't die, you will wake up in heaven. Ah, is that so? Then I am ready to die. And there may be no heaven at all. And in any case, I may not go there. So, when this me, which is an effect, which is a product, tries to understand its own cause, life, and being unable to comprehend the totality, grasps it fragmentarily, there is misunderstanding, there is ignorance, there is fear. You want to hang on to one fragment. Life is not composed of fragments. Life is a stream. Life is a flame. You cannot hold it. Life is not even like air, it is like space. You cannot hold it. You are held by it. The me is held by it. The me is given birth to by life. You are part of this life. When this truth is not understood, there is struggle. Yes, I think you were telling me the other day. If people understand, if people are philosophically inclined, then they say, all right, I have lived my life, let me die. They die peacefully without any struggle. But if somebody says, no, one more injection and you live for another 50 years, then you struggle. That is, I accept only this fragment and not the whole thing. Not only this, once a division is created in this indivisible life, the division keeps multiplying. Then, after having divided my life into this is life and this is death, I divide life in another fashion. This is my life and that is your life. May not be true. May not be true. I must promote my happiness. I must sustain my life even at the expense of your life. And everyone thinks so. And you see the instant chaos you can make. This is the state of our lives. We have made this life so utterly miserable, thoroughly miserable. Not because we want to make ourselves miserable or make others miserable. That is not our intention at all. But merely because of a lack of understanding. This lack of understanding is not because we are not educated, literate. We are highly literate. Two great men come to my mind right now, both of whom were anti-literacy. One was Ramana Maharishi. You have a picture of him there. He attained enlightenment or self-realization when he was still a teenager. And later on, when someone questioned him, did you encounter any difficulties? He said, no. Why not? I didn't go to school. I didn't go to school. I didn't read any scriptures. So, I have no I had no difficulties. Nobody to suggest a problem. One day this young boy, felt he was dying and he died. He was aware that he was dead, and then he began to question himself. If I am dead, who is it that looks at this body, dead body. And that led him to enlightenment. Easily, shortcut. He was still a teenager. There was no psychologist to tell him, why, you're only hallucinating. You didn't die. You were suffering from some kind of a delirium. So, because these ideas had not been put into him, he took that and went straight through to self-realization. This is one. Another one I remember, I think I saw this here on television. Someone interviewing Lord Russell, Bertrand Russell. They were talking of philosophy, of politics and this, that and so on. And the interviewer asked him, finally, Lord Russell, what according to you are the fundamental causes of the problems that faces in modern life? Ground his teeth. Let you want an answer? There are two causes. One, nationalism. Second, literacy. No, I'm not saying it. I can see him, so I can even almost imitate. So, it is not that sort of problem we have, difficulty we have. In understanding the nature of life, the meaning of life. It is our own fault of non-investigation. We seem to be too fond of being spoon-fed. Biologically and physically we are adults, but spiritually we are still infants, wanting to be spoon-fed. When this me is not investigated into, there is no understanding of life, the meaning of life. And the me finds itself in this life thrown about here and there, driven here and there. And invents endless purposes to this life. As we go on, we'll see that the me itself arises only in relationship. Yes? You'll see that in the morning. As soon as you become aware, I am lying in bed, or I'm here and he is there, and what is called the ego always arises in a relationship to the environment. And when the totality of life or the meaning of life is not seen, is not realized, out of that ignorance, please listen to this very carefully, when the meaning of life is not understood, out of that ignorance arises a purpose. Do we have the honesty and the simplicity to answer the question, why do we live? So simply, no. Why do you live? Oh, in order to serve humanity. Long before you were born, humanity was there in a much better shape. Swami Shivananda often used to say, if God wanted to promote human welfare and destroy all suffering, he can do in an instant. You and I are not here for that purpose. That purpose is invented by ignorance of the meaning of life, ignorance of life itself. When this problem is not properly investigated into, out of that ignorance of life, of the meaning of life, arises theories concerning the purpose of life. I read a very interesting religious text where this tremendous problem of why God created the world and human beings is discussed. Tremendous problem, huh? And this man answers this question. Why, unless you are very vigilant, you will miss the joke. Why did God create humanity and the world? In order that all beings may attain salvation. Huh? Wait a moment, I didn't hear it properly. There were no human beings, there were no living beings, there was no world. Why did you create this? In order to give them salvation? If you wanted to give them salvation, you need not have created all these beings at all. They were already saved. What an absurd doctrine. And yet, millions of people lovingly, eagerly swallow this. What is the answer to that question? Why did God create the world and all of us? What is the most sensible answer to that question? The only answer that you and I can give as lay people is ask him. I don't know, it's obvious. Ask him, don't ask me. He created and you ask me. One of the greatest philosophers of India, called Gaudapada, he answers it in a different way. It's very clever, again. Devasya esha swabhavoyam apta kamasya ka spruha. Why do you think, now listen very carefully, this applies to you. Why do you think that God created the world? Because he had a purpose. Did he have something to achieve by creating this world? Was he lonely and he wanted our company? Was he miserable and he wanted our nursing? Why did this omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient God, who alone exists, who is full, perfect and all that, why did he have to create all this? So Gaudapada says, he had no motive, he had no purpose, he had nothing lacking to fulfill, no desires to fulfill. Devasya esha swabhavaya. What you see is his own nature. The entire universe is his own nature. The infinite manifests itself in infinite ways because it is infinite. Because it is infinite, the infinite manifests in infinite ways. Don't ask any more questions. And this is true of you. Why do you want to create a relationship? Why do you want to entertain a notion that this world exists to satisfy me? The me need not be satisfied if there was no dissatisfaction. And if there is dissatisfaction, it cannot be satisfied. There is a remarkable saint poet there was in South India who pointed out that if God, Almighty, Omnipotent, can do anything, yes? If God converted this one man into a big fish, whale, this one man turned him into a great big fish because he loved him so much. God loved him so much, he turned him into a whale and threw him into the ocean. Instantly converted the waters of the entire ocean into wine and gave him authority over all creatures. He could eat anyone he liked, me, you. And for the other thing, he had all the nymphs of heaven at his service. And he was the unchallenged emperor of the whole universe. He said that God cannot satisfy one man. If God did all that, even one man would not be satisfied. Then he would begin to ask God, I have got all this, my God, what about your job? Why shouldn't I take on your job? You are still my boss? No. That is, if you are dissatisfied, nothing is going to satisfy you. But where does this dissatisfaction arise? Again, we have never bothered to inquire, never bothered to investigate this. The dissatisfaction arises in me, the me arises in life, and this series has never been looked into, never been investigated into. And so, out of that ignorance of the totality of life arises me. Me struggles and struggles and struggles out of dissatisfaction, tries to get this, acquire this, challenge this, and gets caught up in this endless series of struggles. Then you begin to invent a few purposes in life. What's your purpose? Your purpose is to serve humanity. So, grin and bear it. You will be miserable. You will be miserable here. And if you grin and bear it and keep on serving everybody, everybody means me. Please remember that. Another big joke. The other joke was Dale Carnegie, and this is another big joke of all these nice religious people. You must serve all the holy men. Who says it? All the holy men. Naturally. I'm not saying please don't, but if you examine what are known as codes of ethics and morals and so on, you might also, if you are skeptic and cynical enough, you might see this. If you are wealthy, your philosophy is thou shalt not steal. You don't want your wealth to be stolen by other people. If you are poor, your philosophy is thou shalt share. the, it's the me that invents all these. And invariably, the invented doctrine is something which is tailored to suit the me. I'm not saying that these are bad. Everything is good, marvelously good. But if you see this very carefully, that all these purposes, all these doctrines and theories are put together by the me in its state of ignorance concerning itself and its source, which is life. It's very much like the pre-Einstein mathematics and post-Einstein mathematics. The pre-Einstein mathematics are still valid up to a point. But beyond that point, they are not valid anymore. You look at me, I am brown, I am an Indian. That's perfectly correct. No need to deny this. But let us, both of us, go and stand in front of an X-ray plant. There these distinctions vanish. There's one skeleton, there's another skeleton. There is no Australian skeleton, there is no Indian skeleton. There is no difference between the two. So, these distinctions may be valid up to a certain point. Beyond that, they are not valid. The purposes invented by the me may be necessary, may be expedient in our lives, may make our lives run in an orderly and smooth way, but the fundamental problems that plague our minds, our hearts, cannot be dealt with by such superficial means, by inventing a purpose. One day or the other, there will be disillusionment. Disillusionment is a good thing. One day or the other, there will be disillusionment, and there may be great shock, and it may be too late. Before it is too late, is it possible for us to investigate the me, its relationships, the way it behaves, the movements that are associated with the me, and by taking it to its own source, what consciousness is, what life is, not what it is for, but what life is. That is the theme of this Yoga Vasistha, which we shall continue to discuss on coming Saturdays. We shall always conclude with a minute or two of silence, so that whatever is heard may slightly be digested. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.